Hi everyone. Indulge with me. What if the Commonwealth wasn't just a network, but a movement? What if the Commonwealth Student Association wasn't just a secretariat, but a student powered system? I believe that the best policies don't come from the top, but they rise from classrooms and communities and the voices that have long gone unheard. But before we speak policy, let's speak purpose. My name is Pranav Karthikeyan, an aspiring youth leader shaped by the fluidity of cultures, the movement of borders, and the diplomacy of lived experience. Though my roots lie in South India, my story spans across continents, from the deserts of Saudi Arabia to the classrooms of South Korea and the heart of the American Midwest, to the pulse of Singapore, where I reside right now. As a current third culture kid growing up around embassies and international missions, I saw how identity, power, and opportunity shifts depending on where you stand, and it was in navigating these contrasts that I learned opportunity isn't something you receive, it's something that you build and you share. Since then, I spent every chapter of my life breaking barriers, building bridges, and most importantly, connecting hearts. I've worked in UN rooms to rural schools, leading initiatives in Singapore and India and across the Commonwealth. But today, I stand here before you as not as a finished product, but as a platform. Because my most meaningful work has never been about my voice alone. It has been about what it unlocks for others. And that is why this candidacy is rooted in a bold manifesto, from representation to reimagination. Not just being at the table, but redesigning it completely. Not just youth participation, but youth power. And I'll do this by championing three particular pillars, which is leadership, global advocacy, and impact. Coming to my first pillar, which is leadership, it is essentially for all and not a few. Now, across Asia, student governance is still being dominated across urban, English-speaking cities. But you know what? The most inspiring leaders that I have met have come from conflict zones, farming communities, and indigenous schools. And they are too often invisible. And due to that, I'll be launching the CSA Leadership Pipeline, a 12-month virtual incubators for 30 young leaders from underdeserved communities, who will receive mentorship, policy training, and collaborative efforts with the Commonwealth Youth Council, Commonwealth Student Association, and National Youth Councils. I've built this before as an Interact Club president leading 30-plus service projects, and as the vice president of ISEC in NTU, I've mentored over 200 students and bridged the youth delegations across borders. And with this experience, I want to hone in on scaling leadership for those who need it the most. Coming towards my second pillar, which is global advocacy, it should make student voices a policy and not just a performance. Too often, youth voices are applauded and then ignored. In 2020, I personally addressed UN officials at the Student Conference on Paris Agreement under the UNFCCC and Jacob Wayne's GEM on climate justice. However, long after our discussion, the impact beyond remained yet stagnant. And that day taught me that symbolic speeches fade, but you know what doesn't? Systems. That is why I will launch the Commonwealth Student Association's Asia Student Congress, a rotating digital chamber of student leaders from across Asia, co-creating declarations on education, climate, refugee rights, and digital equity. These won't just be documents, however, they'll be translated and tracked via a motion tracker and implemented with CSA-backed campus toolkits provided to all of them. This isn't just consultation, it's co-creation. This is government in action. Moving towards my third pillar, which is making a measurable and lasting impact, I would like it to be lived and not just read about. Because let's face it, most students in Asia are unaware of the CSA's untapped potential, and that's not their failure, however, it's our failure. To overcome this challenge, I propose the CSA Asia Campus Accord, a values-based agreement bringing CSA's principles of mental health, cultural inclusion, and transparent elections into classrooms all across the continent that will sign on to join a regional network, publicly visible on a CSA impact dashboard. This dashboard will be monitored by us, and to ensure that no student is left behind, I will launch the CSA Pulse, a 90-second multilingual updates shared via WhatsApp, Telegram, and campus boards, because advocacy shouldn't stop at capital cities. Moreover, it should start in communities. Now, with these three in mind, I'd like to recenter back to what this is saying, which is about leadership, global advocacy, and impact must look like. Not promises, but platforms. Not top-down, but peer-built. Not symbolic, but structural. And through my experiences leading student and youth governance, I realized that I don't believe in representation for the sake of it. I believe in building platforms that will outlast my term. Because we don't just need new ideas, we need new systems. With this candidacy, I offer exactly that, a pathway rather than a profile, focused on the crossroads of policy and innovation. One that turns representation into real outcomes, bridging students from the margins to the center of Commonwealth action. Vote Pranav Karthikeyan. Let's break barriers, build bridges, and connect hearts all across Asia and beyond. Thank you.